It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. Ask SCW, answering your questions in the wrestling community will begin straight after this. Some hot topics, as always, here on Ask SCW, including what do I think of Goldberg's return? What do I think about Big E going to SmackDown? Do I think that the push is well and truly over? And going to be starting things off with an absolute banger from AEW as well. If you want to be involved, though, on the next episode of Ask SCW, drop a comment here on YouTube. Leave the hashtag AskSCW. I know to include your question and give you a shout out in the next episode. And as well as that, also you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All should be covered on the screen right about now. But without further ado, let's get in with that first question this week. And it comes from Metalcore Nerds. Who is the free agent that Tony Khan has signed? What a brilliant question to kick things off this week. Clearly the hot topic after AEW Rampage. Let's look at Tony Khan's tweet and see if we can figure out who it might be together. The big announcement for Wednesday's Dynamite that we referenced on AEW Rampage, a free agent debut, and the person walking through the forbidden door are one and the same. They're walking in the door, signing a contract, and then slamming the door shut Wednesday on AEW Dynamite. Now, first off, unless they actually are a free agent just now and about to leave a company, Tony, it doesn't make sense. If it's actually been like 90 days or something, if it's one of those superstars, which it very well could be, a Keith Lee, a Karrion Kross, that wouldn't really make sense. That's not going through the forbidden door. They were let go from their previous job and now they're going to come and start a new job. That's not going through the forbidden door. So, I mean, many people are suggesting Keith Lee. I think that certainly could be a potential. Karrion Kross, another one of those, could be a potential. Now, one thing as well, we know it will be a male superstar, or more likely a male superstar, because the person that will be debuting will also have a match, to have a qualifying match for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. You remember the big Sonic ring that was hanging above the ring last year, of course, the Revolution, to get a TNT Championship opportunity. That person will be taking on Isaiah Cassidy, of course, of Private Party. So some other names that could be potential, I think, are worth keeping note for. Josh Alexander being one of them. His contract is up this month with Impact Wrestling. He is actually expected to taking place in the match at No Surrender, but no word on what's going to go on after that. And let's not forget that, well, he's not really chased that World Championship the same way since losing it, or winning it and losing it, at Bound for Glory in October last year. Maybe if he's not signed, maybe there's a chance he could be coming in, signing here with AEW and being with them going forward. He would fit nicely in the TNT Championship picture, and as well as that, it would be a big loss for Impact Wrestling. He was in the PWI's top 10 last year, so he could definitely be a shout, and he was also name dropped by Brandy Rhodes last week on AEW Dynamite. So there could be something with this. It's something to keep an eye out for. Another name I'm going to throw out there as well is Juice Robinson, because, well, I mean, AEW have done their Forbidden Door stuff with Impact. They've done it as well with New Japan. They've also done it with NWA also, and perhaps in some cases you could say Ring of Honor, but all their talents have already been released. So again, doesn't really make sense in my personal opinion. But look at the New Japan one that is out of contract that I certainly think could work. Juice Robinson, to see him come over to the States full time, to be a part again in that TNT Championship picture, I think would work really, really well. The flamboyance of Juice Robinson would be fun to see in an AEW ring. So those are going to be the two names I'm going to stick my neck out for. If I had to predict one of them, I'm going to go with Josh Alexander, purely because Ethan Page debuted in this spot last year. Of course, the North, the tag team, one of the greatest tag teams around at the time when they were performing, was split up when Ethan Page left Impact to come to AEW. Maybe we could be now getting Josh coming into AEW as well, and we can see how it will go. Will it be them as the North again? Will it be rivals? Who knows? I mean, Ethan Page is already a part of this Men of the Year group with Scorpio Sky and, of course, Dan Lambert. You can't forget Dan Lambert. But yeah, looking at things, it could be interesting. Most people predicting Keith Lee. I do think Keith Lee will actually debut any time from now. I do think Keith Lee could go in really at the higher up point of the card. I don't think he even needs to go into the TNT spot. I wouldn't be surprised if he was to come in, but as I say, I don't think it would make a lot of sense judging by the tweet. But hey, what do I know? Keith Lee, heavy favourite, but I will predict Josh Alexander. We'll also keep an eye out for Juice Robinson. One minor note I will actually just say that before I go to the next question. If you really want to make some headlines make it Goldberg. I'm just going to say that because Goldberg has one more match left with WWE. I know Goldberg wouldn't be the popular choice, but could you imagine if he came in, signed the dotted line and was going to be with AEW afterwards and have a match? But of course TNT title wouldn't make sense of it, but still, if you want to make headlines, that would really cause headlines amongst the wrestling community because, well, to be fair, he'd be due to have a match with Roman Reigns, wouldn't he? Just, you know, a week later in Saudi Arabia at the Elimination Chamber. But it's meant to be Goldberg's last match on his WWE contract, but of course I expect him to probably sign another deal with a few more matches at some point further down the road. But still, yeah, if you want to make headlines, that could be something that could be fun. Just something to keep in mind. It won't happen, but yeah, as it's there, I just thought myself, I could not mention it. Speaking of Goldberg, our next question comes from It's My Wrestling Podcast. Gotta go with the big one. Goldberg, do you think he still has a place in WWE, or would you have gone a different way for the Chamber? Now, Goldberg is one of those hot topics, isn't he? And of course, if you know me well, you know that really, I've not been the biggest fan of Goldberg since his return back in 2016. Now, of course, the big initial one against Brock Lesnar was big and shocking when he won that in like a minute and 27 seconds or whatever it was. But when he was then to take on the likes of Kevin Owens and The Fiend, and then, you know, win those championships, have those title matches first off, and then win them in such quick and decisive fashion, and arguably killing the momentum of those superstars afterwards, you'd know I'm not a fan of that. But when it comes to a circumstance like this, where, you know, Goldberg can come in, have a big marquee match, and then put the other superstar over, it worked really, really well for Drew McIntyre last year when they did that at the Royal Rumble. I think here for this match against Roman Reigns, it does make perfect sense. It's a big marquee match. They were going to do it at WrestleMania 36. Yes, is it taking somebody else's spot? Of course it is, but I mean, it's on the show that it's on, and I just feel for me, it's okay for this show, and I know that it's not going to interrupt any storylines. It's just a placeholder for what's going on. And as we mentioned in the last question, Goldberg only has one more match on his current WWE run. I do expect they probably will renegotiate terms to probably give him one or two more matches probably going forward. I still think there is one or two more he could do in WWE if they wanted him to do them, of course. But if there was only one match left, this is arguably the one dream match that's left to do, and arguably apart from John Cena and I suppose Big E. I'm going to mention them out now. Big E, if you wanted to have that. I know Rita would want that match as well, so you know, there is a couple on the side plate, but if there was one, Roman is the guy. And yeah, it's only going to be a few minutes. It's all going to be about the entrances for these two, isn't it? But Roman is walking into WrestleMania as the Universal Champion. There's no getting around that, and that won't change. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine. I'm down for this match. And you know, with a match like that, if people are going to watch Elimination Chamber, it's a good opportunity for people lower on the card to try and build themselves a spot up going out of it and pushing themselves into WrestleMania. So Elimination Chamber, even if they're not in the championship match, it's still a place on the road to WrestleMania where you can really make a name for yourself. So those superstars need to try and do that in their own way. Next, we've got Over Nice from the HHW show here. He says, should it be title versus title at WrestleMania? WWE Champion versus Universal Champion in a unification match? It does also go on to say as well, could we see a triple threat match between Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey, a rematch from WrestleMania 35? Great questions, these ones, and let's start off then with WWE title versus Universal title for WrestleMania 38. Is there a possibility? I'd say it's definitely 50-50 at this point. Despite Brock losing that title at the Royal Rumble, I do feel there could be a bit of a panic mode from WWE. They have no idea what to do with the WWE Championship going into WrestleMania. If you believe your dirt sheets rumours, Paul Heyman apparently has been pushing for the idea of title versus title, and the famous words were said on SmackDown this week that Brock Lesnar would not be entering WrestleMania as WWE Champion. There was no way he could win the Chamber, which of course in WWE's language usually means that Brock is winning. Now, of course, if you ask my opinion on things and how it should go down, I don't think it should be. I do think there could be a way, if WWE could figure out a plan of what to do on the Raw side, I think it'd be better to have another marquee match and not have, you know, title versus title, because is it a point then that it becomes too much Roman or too much Brock? I mean, Brock isn't winning at WrestleMania, let's be fair here. But would it be too much Roman for him to have both titles and be on both shows? It certainly would keep both networks happy. And would it be the start of stopping the brand split? So many people have been released, maybe everyone could be put on to one, or you know, both shows once again rather than being on one, and then that certainly would make more sense then for the women's to become a triple threat match, a rematch of WrestleMania 35. But what I would answer for that one is I don't think it's going to happen. Ronda has made a choice now. She said Charlotte Flair, and I think this opens the door up perfectly for Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch. Expect Bianca Belair to win a #1 contenders match in some fashion between now and the Raw after Elimination Chamber. If they can get a Women's Elimination Chamber match on the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia, then power to WWE, and I expect Bianca to actually be not just qualifying for it, but winning as well, and then facing Becky Lynch. The alternative they could do is even do an Elimination Chamber match on Monday Night Raw after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. I think that would be good actually for ratings as well. And let's not forget, they did it for Hell in a Cell as well last year. So don't think that these gimmick matches can't be on a weekly television show. But of course, I'm sure SmackDown would want one in their own format as well. So who knows? We could be getting more Elimination Chamber matches than we would expect this year. But to quickly go back on Brock versus Roman and to give my ultimate answer for it, I'm going to say no for now. But we've got time for the storyline direction to change between now and then. And storyline direction actually currently says yes. But if you go back to my fantasy booking video, I had Roman in some fashion costing Brock Lesnar this match, just to make him feel like he's nothing without Paul Heyman. And I think that could be the interesting storyline narrative for them going into WrestleMania for their match. But hey, anything can happen. Let's see what happens with the unification match of the WWE title and the Universal title. Certainly a possibility, but I don't think it's going to be for the Women's Championships, no. Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo. So it looks like Big E is back on SmackDown and in the tag team division. Has WWE failed to make Big E a main eventer? And can Big E truly exceed to be a top performer for WWE, and how would you fix it? It's a sad, harsh reality, isn't it? Big E on SmackDown, yes, he's teaming with Kofi Kingston, being a part of the New Day once again. It's very sad even just watching the New Day, because the same thing happened to Kofi. We never saw Kofi sort of, fight to get back into the top picture, really. I mean, arguably you could say, yeah, he took on Bobby Lashley last year at some point, but Money in the Bank, but was completely squashed in doing so. I just don't want to see this happen to Big E as well. It does feel like that they've really mistreated the guy, to be fair, because if anyone was put in Big E's spot and made the champion and then booked like that for 3 months, WWE is never going to make another main eventer ever again, because clearly they just didn't know how to book the guy once they got him to the top. And to be fair, I don't think it's Big E's fault. Yes, you put him through that match at Survivor Series, champion versus champion, which I think, to be fair, I'm starting to see now that Raw and SmackDown, these matches at Survivor Series just doesn't work anymore. Like, it does more damage than good, especially when it's an up-and-coming champion. Big E couldn't really have afforded that loss at that time, especially in such a decisive fashion. To then go on what I think has been arguably the worst start to a calendar year for any champion in history. Look, he lost his championship on day 1 in the Fatal 5-Way match, which Brock Lesnar won, that we've went over already in this video. And Big E had been going for a storyline that was supposed to be him and Seth Rollins. Of course, it went with multiple people in the match. He then challenged Seth Rollins on the episode of Raw, and the heel won. Seth won decisively and clean as well. Big E then sort of been transferred over to SmackDown. He's sort of gone into sort of tag team roles. The Royal Rumble, God, he was in there for 4 minutes, wasn't he? Look, he was supposed to have some spots with Kofi Kingston. That botch of elimination for Kofi didn't help either. But look, I mean, Big E, was he going to be in the match longer? Probably not. And, this was arguably supposed to be something for him. And now, like you say, he's in a tag team now, and they took on Los Lotharios this week. And yes, the best match on what was on SmackDown. Very good. If people haven't gone and seen it, go and check it out. But you do feel, what's the direction for Big E going forward? Now, I'm going to look at things and try and be positive with it, because Big E on SmackDown here, if he's not teaming with Kofi, there isn't that many main eventers on SmackDown. So effectively, Big E could fill a spot here. He could actually, build his way up and be a challenger for Roman Reigns going into the summer, maybe. It doesn't have to be Drew McIntyre until SummerSlam. Big E could fill that void for a number of months if they wanted to push him and build him correctly. Wins is the thing that fixes this, but maybe a big marquee win could be something that could really fix it. Something you take from the start of the video, something that Big E's actually wanted. Book Big E versus Goldberg for WrestleMania. Now, I know people turn around and say, oh, not Goldberg again, but it's a big marquee name. It's someone that casuals know. It's someone that's been one of the biggest names over the last 25 years or so. If you put Big E versus Goldberg in the match, and Big E can win decisively, because these matches don't go over 5 minutes as well, Big E gets his dream match at WrestleMania. You could put it in the middle of the card as well, and you're doing the right thing with Goldberg. A name like Goldberg coming in, losing to Big E, on that stage as well, you're putting Big E over. You can give Big E a couple of big more marquee wins as well going in towards the summer. Then perhaps by about, June, July, when it's Money in the Bank season, you can actually have Big E versus Roman Reigns for the championship. You don't have to have Big E win this time, but have him have a big more, good performance. Have him where he's so close to it, you actually believe he could win that title from Roman Reigns. And then perhaps Roman maybe escapes with it, I don't know. And then we have the Roman versus Drew McIntyre match that we're all expecting going into SummerSlam, or perhaps even that UK event. But for me, it's all about wins and it's meaningful storylines. Make it like a redemption storyline for Big E. Say, look, things went really wrong for me on Raw, and Kofi, I've enjoyed teaming with you, and I will continue to team with you until Xavier comes back. But when King Woods is back, I need to go back and fulfill my destiny. I need to go and take that title from Roman Reigns. I need to start getting some big wins under my belt. That's the sort of things I think you need to go with a direction on television. Like I say, give him a legend or someone like that of the ilk of a Goldberg at WrestleMania, and just put Big E over, because if he's stuck in tag team mediocrity or back to where he was back in 2015, look, the New Day are special. They're all great performers, and to be fair, as a trio, that they've been fantastic for years and years. But you can see that at times they've outgrown that position. Kofi was a top guy for a while. Yeah, he's not been now for a long time, and we've forgotten it. We've almost given up on the idea of Kofi ever being there again. Big E, it's not over yet, but he does feel like it. It does feel like he will be a tag team wrestler going forward. But I really hope WWE does go down the avenue of pushing him as a single star once Woods is back, because Big E could have a prominent role on SmackDown, and I would like to see a proper program with him versus Roman Reigns. So, hey, let me know what you think in the comments below. Is that something you'd be interested in seeing? And more importantly, how would you fix the situation? Because it is true, Big E hasn't had the best few months in WWE, despite being WWE champion. Mike, a Tanhabs Mike with our next question is now, in your opinion, do you think the Elimination Chamber matches have lost its meaning and feels watered down compared to early Elimination Chamber matches? Fantastic question, this one, because, I mean, arguably it's just a part of something that's now on the road to WrestleMania, but I do feel like even though the structure probably doesn't look as menacing as probably the early days, I know they sort of revamped the chamber like a few years ago, I'm not really against the idea of them doing that, because, I mean, I do believe in safety first, and that structure was painful. I think for a lot of the earlier performers that were in those early chamber matches would go and say that was probably the worst structure to perform in, especially on that steel part on the floor. So the fact that it's now actually sort of more padded and protected, yeah, I suppose it does take away from the match and water it down a little bit, but I'm into the safety of the performance. So for me, I'm totally fine with it, and I still buy the idea of the Elimination Chamber, and to put it on the road to WrestleMania, I still think is probably the best place for it, because if you can't win the Rumble, if you want to get into that big spot at WrestleMania, hey, look, this is the way to do it. And for Bobby, sadly, it's not number one contendership this time, it's him defending the championship. That's happened in years gone as well. So, you know, if you want to be the champion going to WrestleMania, you've got to go through the hard structure this year. It's going to be interesting to see how they're going to do it, and as we said in the video, maybe it ends up being a unification match for the WWE Championship and Universal Championship. So if they're going to do it that method, you know, Brock goes through hell to win that championship, kind of makes sense. So for me, I'm not totally against the idea of how they book the Elimination Chamber. I don't think it's as watered down. I do think sometimes still some of the best Elimination Chamber matches are some of the early ones, but we have had some great ones in recent years as well. The 7-man Elimination Chamber that was on the 2018 show, which I've just done a review on, actually, an SCW Rewind on 2018. The first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match I thought was really, really well booked. As well, booking the Women's Tag Team titles also was really well done. So yeah, I mean, even the Tag Team one that was done in 2020, before we had the pandemic start, I do think there's been some great Elimination Chamber matches. So now I'm going to stick around and say that I actually think the Elimination Chamber is still fine as it is. It's still one of my favourite gimmick matches, and I think this year the match looks stacked, so I'm pretty excited for it, and I do think it's hard to pick a winner as well. FAF Wrestling with our next question now. Who do you see facing Adam Page at Revolution? I'd love to see Adam Cole or MJF. Well, with some good news for you, I think you've got your wish. Adam Cole, baby, will be the one that will be taking on Adam Page for the championship at Revolution. Now, Lance Archer doesn't stand a chance on Dynamite. Sorry to say, it's just filler. Hangman will be retaining the championship. But if you look at Rampage this past week, Adam Cole decisively beat Evil Uno, and has reminded us as well that lost to Orange Cassidy. It was a lights out match. It doesn't count on the record. I know we all remember it, but I think we need to remember Adam Cole in singles matches when the records are on show is undefeated. Let's forget some of the other bits and bobs. Adam Cole has been booked okay in AEW, and I think now we're saying we're going to see a different side of Adam Cole going forward from here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that side of Adam Cole is going to be. Him versus Hangman has potential to be a match of the year candidate. I think they're going to both steal the show at Revolution. As for MJF, I mean, wow. Really enjoyed one of the best matches in Dynamite history, him and CM Punk, but that story is not finished. I expect them to have a rematch at Revolution as well. I expect CM Punk probably will get his win back as well, but to give CM Punk his first loss in Chicago in that manner against MJF, that was bold and it was brave. and it was the right decision. It's something that I was predicting to happen, and I think it was the right move that had gone down, because you can lose the territory doing that sort of thing. That's definitely some real heel heat booking, but MJF is a heel heat magnet, and the more heel heat he gets, the more you want to see him get as well. And I do think he will be your next AEW World Champion, but I don't think it's going to be a Revolution. I think that'll be a double or nothing. I think they'll find a way where MJF can still get himself into that title pitch, even if he does eventually lose to CM Punk, or they may even do a rubber match, which then can decide MJF then to be the #1 contender after this. But Adam Cole will be the one at Revolution, and I do think it'll be a hell of a match between Cole and Hangman Adam Page. Super Sonic X of our next question now. Do you find Britt Baker as AEW Women's Champion completely underwhelming the past few weeks on Dynamite and Rampage? In a way, yes, but that's not Britt Baker's fault. In fact, most of the champions I don't think are being booked great at the moment. I think Jade is being booked really, really well as TBS champion, although she's not been on TBS yet. She's still performing on TNT with that title, but hey, let's not think about that really, but she's been booked strong as a champion. Britt Baker's just not had storyline direction until this week. I mean, if you look really, which she has got storyline direction, but it's not being done consistently. She's not really been featured much on TV. That sort of segment she had on Dynamite where nothing really happened, no challengers came out, there was no reference to what was going on with Rebel and Jamie Hayter, which that storyline was building at the turn of the year with Jamie Hayter, but up until Battle of the Belts, it's kind of gone on quiet for the last 3 or 4 weeks until Rampage this week, where we kind of learned that, well, Mercedes Martinez has been taking out Thunder Rosa, but it wasn't for Jade's sakes. And even though Mark Sterling was the one that was paying Mercedes Martinez, it was Britt Baker who organised it to take Thunder Rosa out. So we're finally getting a storyline build now for Baker and Rosa, which will obviously take place at Revolution. It's just a bit of a weird placement and a bit of a weird way that it's sort of gone about, because, well, we don't know why Britt has anything to do with Rosa at the moment. Rosa hasn't been going for that championship, or is she a top contender? I'm not quite sure, really. Maybe she just wants to get revenge over that lights out match from last year. Maybe something Adam Cole will look to do with Orange Cassidy at some point in the future, going back on that last question. But looking at things here, I mean, it's starting to take notion. And of course, the reason why Mercedes Martinez was paid to do the job was because Jamie Hayter was letting the side down recently. So wheels have gone back in motion, but we've had about 3 or 4 weeks where we haven't. So the answer to your question is yes, but that's down to AEW Creative, not down to Britt herself, but just purely because they just hit pause on what the storyline was. And unfortunately, with a lot of storylines in AEW, and particularly with the women's division, it feels like it's only when it's a couple of weeks to go to the pay-per-view that they realise, hang on, we need to book a match here. I don't remember a lot of storyline narrative going on with Tay Conti and Britt Baker before going in with Chris Statlander either. You've got arguably the best storyteller, the best over champion you could have had in Britt Baker, but yet you're not giving her the storylines to go into the pay-per-views with it. I mean, the story with Riho that went into Battle of the Belts had more meaning behind it than what it did with Tay Conti going into Full Gear. So, in a way, yes is the answer to your question, but do I think overall, for example, Britt Baker as AEW Women's World Champion has been underwhelming? Goodness no, she's carried that division, she's been the star in it, and she still is the star of that division, but she can make the next star in Thunder Rosa, who I believe will be the next AEW Women's World Champion. It feels like the time is right for a change of the belt, and that could also be why maybe you might feel as well the last weeks it's been like that, not just due to a lack of storytelling. So, and in that way as well, when you do that, you can start then the breakup of Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter as well, and they can go and have a program. Jamie Hayter maybe can get a big win, and then maybe she can go for the TBS Championship. So there's lots of things you can do with it. There is a spiraling effect from this storyline, but unfortunately it just had a big gap, and now we've sort of now hit almost an acceleration the way it was done on Rampage this past week, even though it was in a short 30-second backstage segment. Let's hope now it really takes legs with it and it can really start pushing forward as we head into Dynamite this week. Last question this week coming from Jamie Holmes. Did you think Matt Cardona would do this well after WWE? He reinvented himself in GCW, of course being GCW champion and ECW television champion, having great feuds with Nick Gage and Joey Janela, and how he beat Jordan Grace in Impact. It feels like GCW MC is spilling over. Could not agree with this more. How impressive has Matt Cardona been outside of WWE? Now, I must be the first to admit I've not seen everything during the GCW sort of era that he's been a part of, but I did see everything with Nick Gage when he won the championship, that bloodbath of a death match, the way that he then literally was just tease that crowd with a spinner championship, the Macho King vibe as well. I've not seen the Joey Janela stuff, I'll be honest with that, but I'm aware the heat is still very real. The idea of as well with Chelsea Green having that same heat as well in GCW. I almost felt as well when I've watched him in Impact Wrestling since that it's been sort of very vanilla, very bland, and very like, come on, bring that character Impact, because it feels like it's a big deal. And although the identity works more with GCW because of the fact that he's this top star that's coming to this, you know, sort of like promotion that sort of will use all these, you know, horrible weapons for death matches and stuff like that, I still think that this marquee of a character could work really, really well in Impact. And to see what he did this past week, of course, after failing at Hard to Kill, trying to do things the right way, was supposed to be the magical moment. Matt Cardona will be a top guy. He realises he can't be a world champion in that way, and realised probably during the match he weren't going to be able to beat Jordan Grace either. But to win that digital media championship, he used the steel chair. And also said, if you want to know with the failures and stuff, husband, ask Jonathan Gresham how he felt that his wife lost. So there's definitely kicked in with that heel turn. I love that that's happened. With Chelsea Green, you can see it's there. It's bursting to come out with Mickie James in that storyline as well. So I think that could happen even as early as this week, because they're meant to be facing one-on-one. We've been asked the question, what does Chelsea Green think of what Matt Cardona has done last week on Impact Wrestling? I think we're going to find out very clear that she's perfectly fine with it. She's happy to see her man as champion. She's tried to do things the right way as well by losing Ultimate X, losing clean to Tasha Steele on multiple occasions. That heel turn is coming, and perhaps, who knows, maybe now Mickie James will actually retain against Tasha Steele, and it's Chelsea Green who will win that championship, maybe perhaps going into Rebellion, or maybe even the pay-per-view before, and we can see both of them with championships in Impact Wrestling with this heel gimmick. And I think personally, I think it could be main event money. I think Cardona, this could be the year for him in Impact, where he could actually rise himself towards the top of the card. And I think as well, if he carries on with this momentum in GCW, look, GCW's stock has risen itself over the last 12 months, and it could be a promotion that becomes can't miss. And certainly, if it continues the momentum it's doing with them in it like this, people are just going to continue to praise the work they're doing. But that's all for me anyway this week on Ask SCW. Let me know your thoughts on any of the topics in the comments below. Thank everyone as well for their questions as always. Just to say as well, go and check out SCW Rewind if you haven't already. Of course, was doing Elimination Chamber 2018, a review of that show. Was joined by the fantastic Wrestling by Waldridge, Aaron. It was actually his birthday as well yesterday, so happy birthday to you. Hope you celebrated in style. And yeah, go and give him a subscribe as well on his channel. There's some fantastic content on his channel. In fact, Under Analysis, his series that is loved by so many, is returning this Wednesday. So yeah, make sure to go and check that out. It's a great attention to detail. We call him the analytical assassin for a reason. But that's all from me anyway, and more videos will be dropping from me in the week as well, including what does Wrestling YouTube think is the greatest Elimination Chamber match of all time. That will be dropping on the channel as well. I'm hoping to try and do a live Q&A as well if time allows. But that's all from me anyway, and Ask SCW is actually going to return now in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, but other videos will be dropping on the channel in the meantime, and I'm going to try and fit out with live Q&As while I don't do this format in the meantime. So yeah, you can always hop on board those videos and jump in with your questions still, and I can answer them live here on camera. But that's all for me. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. You've been watching Ask SCW here on YouTube. All the best.